boards as well, adapters. So we're saying that we appreciate the program, but please in the future listen to what we say when we request assistance and follow along better guidelines.
Seconder, who's the seconder? Morris? Morris, do you wish to speak to the resolution?
I agree with what Hartman said, and even on our own farm, we had gross errors in what was recorded. Mr. Grell this morning when he was speaking, he said that with this GRIP program, they wish to have the farmer or his representative there so that they can sign a piece of paper stating that they agree with what was measured if they go through this GRIP. And if you take this rent program, there was no duplicate copies, nothing left to do. I rode around the truck personally and wrote down exactly what the appraiser had written down. And now you can call Edmonton to the office of Public Safety Services. What they tell you, the transposed figures, they've taken 1 ton an acre of hay and chopped it to half since the guy left my farm. And it's done in an office somewhere. It isn't done in the field looking at the standard hay that we have. And that's the type of things that they're doing. And it's just not fair at all. If they publicize one thing, then that's what you should be paid on. If they want to publicize half a ton an acre, that's fine. Pay that. And that's what happened at our place.
Thank you, Morris. Is there anyone in opposition who wishes to speak in opposition to this motion? Yes, John.
I'm just a visitor.
Yes,
So
you have the rights to the floor, John.
I certainly don't want to speak in opposition to the motion. I just walked in and just was gathering the context of it. What I would like to assure everyone here, especially those who are disgruntled, and believe me, I'm still fielding phone calls from people who are upset with the program. The program that the Alberta Public Safety Services attempted to deliver through the hail and crop adjusters obviously caused a number of concerns in the community. What I do want to assure you is that those concerns have been passed directly to both of our ministers, and that both of our ministers understand and appreciate those concerns. And what I have heard and passed on is this. Number one, there is a feeling that that program did a great deal to address the needs of the hay and forage seed producers, but not enough to address the needs of the grain producers. Is that a fair assumption? Number two, that the adjustment process was annoying from several perspectives. So remember the complaint that they didn't get fair adjustments, or that the adjusters didn't even get out of their pickups. Well, I know enough of the adjusters involved to suggest that that may have been true in the odd case, but by and large, I think they were a good group of people doing the best they could with the tools they had. And remember, they were under extreme pressure to do it fast because they didn't want to be in a situation where they were still adjusting when you guys are ready to get out there and put your crop in. And some of you would have been in that situation, although a lot of it was still a crop to come off. Lastly, I would like to share with you that although the program did cause a lot of annoyance, it did pump not 14.9 million into the economy of the region, which was originally suggested, but in fact $22 million into the economy of the region. So it did provide some genuine help in a great many cases. There were 3,500 applicants, I believe. The bottom line being, yes, on behalf of APSS, which is not my department, but being a civil servant, I understand your concerns. We passed them on. I know there's been some discussion department to department, so those concerns have indeed gone through. Thank you.
Thank you, John. While you were away, we passed a motion thanking citizens of Alberta and those people who were involved in making the program, the ministers and so forth, and actually yourself. You're not named in here, but you are in here. Thanking them for we had $23 million written on here, and that was passed unanimously here before you came back. I just wanted you to know that, so we're not totally bellyaching. That was the thank you motion. Now we're getting a motion forward to perhaps say maybe we could do a little differently the next time.
Appreciate that, and I'm sure the one will be much appreciated by our ministers, and I'm sure the second will be accepted as a constructive attempt to improve things in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, John. For the purposes purposes of allowing debate, I'll take your comments as against the motion. Forgive me. So now we can proceed. Are there any other further comments on the motion?
Situation like that, when they come up to check the pheasant fields that had been harvested, there was room for guys to take advantage of it. I know two did, and I think there should be some guidelines set down in the future for situations like that when they can't go on. I feel that it's not fair. The rest of the people that deserve it didn't get it. Take a crop off the plow down, and that guy comes out and says, what's got to assess?
Any further comment?
Question.
Question. Very well. All those in favor of the motion, please signify. Thank you. Those opposing the motion? Carried unanimously. Okay, those were the last of you another 5, right, okay, do you want to go further on with resolutions at this time? Okay, Beth, go ahead.
I'll read this one. Whereas the federal government has formed a committee to research and formulate policy for a safety net program for the Canadian agricultural industry, and whereas this is currently in process with 2 programs, GRIP and NISA, being discussed, these programs may not yet become available to us for some time. Be it resolved that Unifarm lobby the federal government to instate a program of assistance to be in place during the transition period that exists from now until the implementation of these new safety net programs. And this was moved by Morris LeMay.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Has to be a seconder or it's lost before it started. Will you speak to it, Morris?
Everybody realizes the state of agriculture and the market. The markets that we have available to us right now, and there's not much we can do. And, the federal government is working towards these safety nets, but I think when you're caught, probably like we mentioned this morning, at 92, 93 will be the first year that it's available. So we're caught for 2 years with nothing, and I guess during a normal price for our commodity, it wouldn't be bad. We'd be, no problem. But right now, we're in a very suppressed market. It's going to be a tough situation for the next couple of years.
Thank you. John, do you wish to speak to that? Is there anyone in opposition to that motion? It's a great difficulty getting people to speak against this. Well, again, we'll start through. Any comments then on the motion? Any debate? Norm?
I think it's almost a crisis situation, really, that we're in, as far as grain producers are concerned. This motion certainly deserves support. Very strong support. Like I said, there are some programs being developed where these programs, when we're in a bottom
Yeah, Dalton, we were on the
You should read it.
How are you?
You might not, but
I didn't want to. Well, actually, in this case, I thought we were focusing on something.
No. Well, why not?
That's interesting, I guess, yeah.
Quite interesting.
First draw is the air come from UFA Farm Supply. 43.
well, I bet you.
I pulled your network.
Another case of oil from Central Canada.
Don't you kick it.
It's about Dr. Cameron.
Yeah, that's why I
I had
got
my glasses on. I should never walk with my glasses on.
I had my hand on it, you notice, ever since then.
Dudley Bristol.
Oh, that's great.
You're busy with your camera.
It's off right now.
It's over. No, don't do
Everybody's ducking this one.
That's right. Everybody's over. We're probably going to go because we're leaving tomorrow morning very early. Yeah. She's breaking. She's just like that. I said she crosses have 48 hours in my camera. She's on fire. It's going to be a rough time for her, but she comes out of that this afternoon. Very intensive radiation where you become radioactive and nobody can hear you. There's just not even bring your food and stuff. So that she's kind of jumping now, but she's going to come home early, I think, tomorrow. So we're going to home, we're going to airport tomorrow morning. No, we're not going to pick her up, she has to fly home, I think. But we're going to go to, we always do this once a year, all the kids. Yeah. Yeah, we go stay in a chalet, go to the hot springs, eat out, and funny little things like that. Some people do Hawaii, we go there.
Well, we're leaving Portugal by train now.
Are you taking the train?
Yeah, the kids bought us a ticket. That was their present for us.
Oh, how nice.
You know, we were still humming and hawing, which
Yeah.
the Lord would come on Sunday, and so we're all sitting around the dinner table, and they come up with this little piece of paper, and this is from the Rickson family, April family, that we get treated to a trip from, we have to go to Stewart, we take the train tomorrow to Vancouver. So she's so relaxing.
Oh,
I mean, some people would probably
I think it'd be wonderful. Our kids all took the train down when they went to Expo. Yes. Oh, just because, you know, they want to take a train, yeah.
Well, with us, like we kept saying, we want to go somewhere over and my brother, like, has a humongous big house. And his wife, my sister-in-law, lives in a condominium in Victoria. because she has to be going down the street. They have liquor stores and 7 days a week, and it's 20 miles over to Sydney.
Yeah.
So she has a Wi-Fi getting right to downtown, and she lives there.
Live careful. Try to get rid of it. Deliberately try to
You can
get rid
stay
of it.
And I said, well, if we come for a week, he said, I don't care if you come for a month. So I told him, as long as we don't think we have to entertain, we just want to go down there and watch the ferry come in and sleep. And,
Have fun.
oh, it sounds like, I mean,
have
for us, fun is just playing.
Relaxing. Exactly. Good for you, buddy. I'm glad you're doing that. Have fun.
Have fun too.
Yeah, well, we will. Ours is much shorter than yours.
Well, it'll still be nice.
Oh, yeah.
There was a strike years ago.
Okay, we'll see you. Yeah, take care.
They tried to have a farm. People walk and get very old ones who are standing on the picket lines and watching the daytime. The ones who say we're taking feed cans into town during the night. They were taking their potatoes and their cows through the back door at night. That's probably why in the government is important to they're coming back to the information, but they're using the NFU. They're playing one against the other. Problem with government That's the frustration. Is that right? I know that pretty well, not as well as I was up at Prairie. Watched the long but at least he did time something. Now I get to go back. You went to work for the local company. Well, you can't play that way. He's never met. He will not. I don't know if he ever knew. You know where he learned? Wow. Because he says, I don't know what he said. He was not being good. Don't ever think that. He was dragged through the cold because he lost that's what hurt him. He said, maybe everybody gets those animals. A guy that you start if you go, some
Citizens shining, see, that's what
Oh yeah, I know, I was right there.
it's not bad.
I guess I was part of the problem because I wasn't the only one. There were several of us who saw it happen. Alex Neil Silver and I were around a lot of Calgary together. So it was part of the problem was because he lost control. It wasn't his fault. It was people out there who did it to him. On the other hand, there were several of us who tried to help, and that made it worse. Because I would get up and say, well, let's try this. I didn't know what to do. Let's try this. Let's try this. That one. One of the carriers.
Once it got on the grass,
He's got way words that
Okay, when it starts, turn it on. Actually, it doesn't really matter. See, you can see. Okay, red button. Okay. Board, right up there in the corner. This is our receipt.
To relieve the federal government of all responsibility to assist in the cost of transporting grain to the tidewater in the future. Therefore, be it resolved that Unifarm present to the Alberta government in the strongest possible terms is disapproval of the right to choose proposal now being advocated by the Department of Agriculture. Moved by Marshall Richards. Is there a seconder to that motion? Does the mover wish to speak to that?
Because I've lost my sense of humor in my old age, I decided to write down what I wanted to say. The freedom to choose proposal is an outright attempt to convince the grain producers of this province to sell their birthright, which is the pro rate for a mess of pottage. A few dollars paid out over the next 15 years, a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and then nothing. In a land-locked country such as the grain production area of Canada, where distances to tidewater are in the thousands of miles, it is inconceivable to not accept the fact that the movement of grain by rail is not the most economical means of transportation. It is also ludicrous not to realize that inflation has caused transportation costs to become severely imbalanced. In comparison to world prices, we as grain producers must accept. If the total transportation costs are added to the elevator costs, that is, if this proposal is accepted, and the transportation costs are added to the elevator costs of the grain companies, there will be more than we get for our barley, and will cause wheat to be almost given away. This freedom to choose document could, in my estimation, have been written by the Alberta Cattle Commission. It not only guarantees extremely cheap feed, but also proposes to pay the prorate benefit on an acreage basis, so that the cattle producers also share in the spoils. The document openly admits that land prices will drop, hence the need to share on an acre basis. Completely ignores the fact that because cattle are going to be such a good-paying commodity, that the ranch land prices may well rise. The document is also self-contradictory. On page 3, it says grain and oilseed price revenues net from rail will rise by 2%. Then on page 16, it talks about how prices will drop. It predicts tremendous economic growth for Western Canada and
an increase of 3,500 to 6,300 jobs, all based, it seems, on increased cattle and hog numbers, while eluding really to increases in the U.S. and Asian markets. They do not consider that the 3,500 cost jobs gained may well be offset by the number of grain producers bankrupt. We all realize transportation costs must be dealt with. Efficiency in the railroad systems, plus branch line abandonment and consolidation grain collection points are good starting points. But there is no need to chuck the whole system, especially now when the future of grain sales is so bleak. This resolution, there must be a resolution of the trade wars between the U.S. and the EEC and a return to a free market before the grain producers of Canada can accept any increase in costs. I urge you to completely reject this supposed discussion paper, as it is too biased and flawed to even be considered.
Marshall, does the Secretary of Reserve wish to speak also?
I think Mr. Richards has pretty well covered everything, but there's a couple of points that bother me, and that is they say that if these gap negotiations are come to some sort of fruition, and there is a general agreement to reduce the agricultural tariffs, that our freight payment may be increased by as much as $10 a ton. Well, I suggest to you that if the GATT agreement agrees to a 30% cut across the board, then that 30% cut in the other countries still leaves us in exactly the same position to them as we are today. And so there's really no way that we can accept it. And if you take this proposal that the Alberta government has proposed and put it up, you know, the 87,000 or $87 an acre that they propose, and you take the interest to pay your freight, it still leaves the grain farmer about $15 to $20 a ton short in the actual freight costs. Because if you take 1,000 acres and you produce, well, not even a ton to the acre, say you only produce 800 tons, that means that you've got about a $16, $17, $18 million freight bill that is being paid by the crow rate right at the present time. If you take the amount of money that you get from the $87 an acre, and say you had 1,000 acres and it comes out to $87,000, your interest is about $8,700 at 10% interest. Who's going to pick up that other $10,000 in freight? You are. And that's going to amount to a hell of a lot more than the $10 a ton you're going to lose through the gap deal. So any way you want to look at it, fellas, we're going to lose unless we retain what we've got now. Thank you.
Just a second. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the motion? John, yes, go ahead.
I don't want to speak against the motion at all. I strongly respect the opinions of two gentlemen who obviously have devoted a major part of their lives to the grain business and who have obviously read the document and done some thinking about it. I guess I would welcome a discussion with them individually afterwards so it doesn't tie up your meeting and your debate time. And secondly, I would ask you the question as to whether you might want to, as individuals, do some more reading and studying as individuals on this before you actually debate the issue, before you pass or defeat a motion on the issue. It strikes me that it's one that's so important and it causes such deep feelings both for and against that it may very well be worth some more study individually before it's put forward as a resolution. Thank you.
then I'd like to ask you a question and point out some of the things that I've seen in it. First of all, blackland for the county of Grand Prairie is listed at X amount per acre, but it is subject to the municipal assessment to each and every quarter that you fire, which in effect means under crop insurance, they also classify land. Some of my best land for rapeseed production is classified as a seed soil. Some of my B land that I wouldn't consider growing canola on, you know, where, so the fact that there's a generalization of figures that is available in certain areas doesn't mean a hoot. When you go into the outlying areas and you go onto the grey wooded soils, I just wonder what those people are going to be eligible for. It may come as low as $40 an acre, because it's all based on the assessed value and the productive value of the land through the Municipal Assessment Act. Pretty scary, if you ask me. Am I correct?
Yes, John, if you want to answer at any time a point of information, just feel free.
Okay, well, I believe the gentleman is correct. The intent is to use an impartial source, a source which is not Alberta agriculture, to establish land values. And the suggestion has been to use municipal assessments. So we're talking on a per quarter basis, essentially here. Yes, the productivity value on some very marginal land will be quite low. I'm not sure if it will be as low as $40. I haven't done the
I
arithmetic.
just pulled the
Yeah,
number out.
but yes, the productivity value on some highly marginal land will be low. But should it not be low? I guess I ask the question in return. If that land does not produce well, should it not be low? If your concern is that the municipal assessment does not accurately assess the value of each of your quarters, and that may be a legitimate concern, then obviously there has to be some visitation to the assessment sheet and some appeal process that follows out of that. And that's a perfectly legitimate request, as I see it.
Because I could throw another one in there to just even emphasize on it more. A quarter that can be a #1 soil, the best land in the country. If it's cut up with potholes, sloughs, drainage course or whatever, on the assessment, it is knocked way down because it's not as easy to farm. Yet, that land may well produce 50 tons more per quarter section than the next quarter alongside of it, which is poorer land. But it's assessed at a higher rate. It boggles my mind how we can operate in such a system. And further to that, I question some of the figures that are in there. Like 9,000 new cars, and through improvements we're only going to need 2,000.
Okay, thank you, Gerald. Yes, John, again?
Again, I'd be happy to chat with you, Gerald, afterwards. The figures that were derived there were derived by the people I suggested to you. They were subjected to some independent assessment by other groups independently who came up with very similar arithmetic. So a great many of the best and brightest minds who are available have independently come up with very similar arithmetic. I know that the pool has put together some arithmetic which they suggest differs. And I think there's going to be a debate between the pool, obviously, and the authors of that document over the next few months. In terms of the assessment and your point about land which is highly productive, but which has a very low assessment based on potholes and being cut up and so on, I think that's a legitimate point. I think that's the type of point that the authors of this document are hoping will come forward, so that if this is our only alternative, and it may well be, keep that in mind, if this is our only alternative, through input like yours, we can have something which is workable there. So thank you for the suggestion.
John, Mike?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to be as destructive as the previous speakers, but seeing that Mr. Knapp is still with us, I might as well make it known that I'm a little bit irate with the way things are going. I think that the taxpayers of Alberta are being patently unfairly treated. We just finished the 2-year study of Alberta wheat pool, committee on which my colleague was a member with the provincial government. And I'm sure they've spent over $1 million on the program to promote the beta producer concept, with which you're familiar, I'm sure. And it's not even a year later, this proposal was kicked under the carpet and we got a brand new approach entirely. Now, I don't think there was any consultation by the provincial government with other farm organizations, except perhaps maybe with some livestock organizations. Mr. Knapp himself has indicated that the federal government has not assured us whether it's prepared to accept this program or not, and to me it seems like a waste of taxpayers' money. It seems like there's a callous disregard for principles here, and I don't like it.
Okay, Mike, Norm, you wish to speak? Your name was called Ben a few minutes ago.
I think that possibly the vote or pass a resolution on this concept is a little premature anyway, because we don't know what's going to come out of gas. And what comes out of gas is going to make a tremendous difference to what does happen to that $720 million that is being distributed to the railways. And if it does come out of gas, that has to be done away with. This program would be a hell of a lot better than nothing. It may not completely replace the cost of the freight, but it would really promote diversification. And I don't think that is all bad. We are faced with a lot of things in agriculture: pollution, erosion, the use of chemicals, and diversification, especially into cattle, helps all those different things. You can do away with an awful lot of the use of chemicals by seeding down and rotating your land with clovers and legumes and the grasses. You can prevent erosion, and you can prevent the use of an awful lot of commercial chemicals. I know, because we're in this type of a farming program, and I think that before this is voted on and made into a resolution, that we should wait and find out what happens in GAP. Then we can probably assess the results an awful lot more reasonable and objective.
Thank you, Norm. Was there any further debate? Yes, please.
What you said, Norm, is partly true maybe, but if you have a paper like this in place, and it's not shot down now, there's something better than this can be done. Far better. This is garbage. We can do something a hell of a lot better, but the government's got to listen to the input of the farmers and the grain producers. To pay a man in southern Alberta, out in the foothills, $117 goddamn acre, when it takes 10 acres for a cow to make a living off it, and here we're getting $87 or $84 an acre. Farmland is far more productive. I find that is not fair. That's not equitable to the whole situation. We can't allow something like this to carry on any farther, because it's not going to be the benefit of everybody. I think something better can be done, but they've got to listen to everybody's comments on it.
It does have to be, I'll agree with you, but it has to be applied fairly.
Yes,
You know,
but we need far more discussion on it.
and that might be quite a problem. But if it's applied fairly, I think the concept could work.
Jim?
I understand, why it's being discussed even. Like, you know, it was tabled for discussion only, wasn't it? At the GATT negotiations? It was just tabled for this is what we got. Why is the Canadian government so doggone hell-bent on negotiating this thing away and disguising it in some other thing? Like, leave it, you know, like it's been said earlier, this pay the producer thing's been going on, and then all of a sudden this thing lands out here. I'd never even heard about it until today, and then I can't understand why the Canadian government is going, well, we'll give away the thing, you know, and we don't even know what to call it anymore. Pay the producer, payment, kind, method of payment, dilution, all this stuff. Why are they even worrying about it? The Army worries about the waterways in the United States. I bet you it hasn't even been brought up at the GATT negotiations. Like and way more money than what they spend here. So why do we even have that? Like, it's just like saying, well, I got an ace and I might play it, but I might not. Leave the thing alone. Withdraw it.
Yes, John?
Yeah, I appreciate your frustration. I think if I were in your shoes, I might feel that way. Can I separate for you, please, the Alberta government's role in GATT versus the Canadian government's role, and then the Alberta government's response? I can't speak for the Canadian government. I can tell you, I believe they've put the position on the table they have because they, along with all other major agricultural trading nations in the world, have agreed that the trade war we're engaged in now is absolutely destructive to agriculture. You folks are suffering seriously, obviously, from the U.S. Export Enhancement Program and the EEC's Common Agricultural Policy. So what they're all agreed on is that there's got to be a better way. They've all basically agreed in principle that we've got to retract from the treasury of one nation competing against the treasury of another. And they've done that on the assumption that you folks are competitive with any grain farmer in the world. And I believe you are. I think you are. Secondly, with the Alberta government, who really doesn't have a whole lot to say at the GATT negotiations because we're represented by the federal government, is doing is saying, well, gee, what if we lose this? What if we lose this pro-benefit? What are the alternatives? Well, here's one. Let's take this to the people of Alberta, to the farmers of Alberta, and see what they say. That's basically what this paper is about. So this is not a GATT position, this paper. It has nothing to do with a GATT position. It's a, holy smokes, what if we lose the pro-benefit? What can we possibly do to restore the birthright that I think Marcel talked about back to the farmers of the prairie? That's basically what it's about.
Further debate?
I'm going to get into the discussion of the debate. I won't, but I have some questions. Not the chairman, so just because I'm standing here doesn't make any difference. John, the last comments that were made here just now, the GATT negotiations, are they not actually agreeing to reduce the amount of subsidy once all countries have reduced their subsidization to a common level? What I'm saying is that we really haven't made a commitment to reduce our subsidization until the EC and the U.S. have dropped their subsidization to our level. Is that not correct?
That's basically correct, Hartman. What we have at GATT is a lot of people laying cards on the table. We have no agreement of any kind. What we come out of at GATT may be something completely different from the Canadian position. And that's why we have this paper. We don't know what will come out of GATT. But if we lose PRO, if we lose WGTA, and the odds are very strong we will, the suggestion is we need some alternative to begin discussing. That's why this paper is here. But
Okay, but right at the moment, the PRO subsidy is on the table for comparison purposes only.
Basically, that's correct.
Okay, I want to make that point. One other point. You and the proponents of the program, and it's a question that I've had for a long time, keep saying that the distortion exists discouraging secondary production. I guess I'm going to be blunt about this question. How low does the price of feed grain have to go before you can no longer claim that it's the distortion that causes the discouragement of sex-slave trade?
Well,
That's one question, and while I've got you there, the other is that since this crow bonding is going to go to all arable acres in Western Canada in the Canadian jurisdiction area, it includes that particular individual in southern Alberta with his livestock operation, which is the dilution that's objected to so much. But that dilution, in effect, becomes a subsidy then to livestock production. And how does that subsidy then fit in with the free trade agreement that we've got with the United States if, in fact, we go 1 million more head of cows in Western Canada? Can you answer those questions?
very fair questions. I'll answer them to the best of my ability, Hartman, and I'll hope that again you'll bear in mind that what's considered dilution, what's considered subsidy is on the table right now, so we don't have an answer. Fair point. Again, the birthright, the $720 million, which is paid to grain producers, as other countries view it as a subsidy to enhance their export of grain, could be looked upon by other producers who own arable land as a subsidy that they get that everybody should benefit from. And keep in mind that that $720 million basically supports export grain. So those who are in the export grain business get a subsidy, which others could argue they don't get. So when we come back to the dilution effect, the fact that the bond would be paid to everybody, not just those who export grain, is basically the flip side of the argument. It restores the fairness of an overall government program to all concerned and allows them the freedom to choose how they're going to spend it. In terms of how low grain prices have to go, I think grain prices are at a point right now where for most producers you're below margin. In many cases you're struggling to meet variable costs. That is a benefit to the livestock business, there is no question. If we were sitting here today during an up period where we were talking $3.50 barley and $5 wheat, for example, livestock producers, especially those industries which consume large volumes of grain, the poultry industry, the dairy industry, the beef industry, I think might be saying the added price burden created by capitalizing the crow benefit into grain and land is something which is definitely preventing the growth of more livestock, more feeding, more packing, and packing is a secondary industry we're talking about in Alberta. So I think if we were at $5 wheat and $3.50 barley, they could make that argument quite easy.
The other point, John, if you don't mind, how does that affect the free trade agreement?
Fair question. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows, other than that the best legal minds have said this proposal is likely to be in the green or amber category, not the red category under GATT. The red category basically being sorry, no way. The amber category being we'll review it, we may or may not accept it. The green category being no problem. And the legal minds who've looked at it are saying not a bad proposal in terms of green or amber. So its chances are much better.
Yeah, okay. Were you referring to green or amber to the free trade agreement?
No, I was referring to GATT, but keep in mind that GATT will have an impact on what we call CUSTA, the Canada-U.S. trade agreement. Our neighbors, the U.S., will certainly play ball with a free trade agreement, providing it fits the requirements of GATT. So what I'm suggesting is that the GATT agreement will likely take precedence over any cross-border controversies in free trade.
Can you explain the wisdom as to why the present landowner would be able to bargain away this bond, like in the securities market and other things, and why that bond wouldn't be directly transferable with the legal description?
Then there'd be no, yes, I can, there'd be no point in having the bond tied to the land in the form of a bond, because it's already tied in terms of capitalizing the crow into higher land values. It's already there. So if it were transferred with the land, there'd be no point in having it. If the bond can be transferred, it gives all of you who may benefit from it the option to say I'm going to collect the interest and use it to subsidize my rail shipping rates, or I'm going to cash it and take a lump sum and diversify, or I'm going to cash it and take a lump sum and pay down debt. It gives you a whole bunch more options which you think you need, rather than just simply keeping it with land.
And what happens to the guy that's going to buy a half section of land 6 months after this comes into effect?
Well, he's got some options. If the landowner says, I'm selling the bond off, or I'm going to keep it personally and clip the interest, then the guy that buys the land says, well, all right, that's fine. Your land is worth 86 bucks an acre less, or whatever. He pays a lot less. He benefits, but so does the guy who keeps the bond and clips the interest. It's the equivalent of paying the full price for land without the bond.
Ben or Rod, the fight is good.
I was going to stay out of this negotiation, but because of the fact that I get very irate with some government officials. The other thing is that, can you imagine, John, in the Peace River area alone, we've got over 21 men sitting here. Any cattleman that's in this room that knows anything about cattle knows that you will not have an economical unit in less than 100 head of cows. Can you imagine what Grand Prairie Auction Mart here in Grand Prairie, or whatever, and that's only 21 people here. Can you imagine what 2,100 head of calves is going to do to your price in Grand Prairie? Do you have any idea what it'll do? We're now talking 83-cent A1 and 2 steers. A1 and 2 steers.
Again, I don't want to tie up your meeting, so stop me at any time.
No, your presence here is conducive to debate. That's fine.
I think 2,100 calves spread relatively evenly over a 4 or 5 month period on a North American market will not have a huge impact on price in Grand Prairie.
Hey, excuse me, I'm not talking 2,100 head. I'm talking the individuals that are at this meeting with 100 head of calves. You throw all the guys that are in Claremont, Sexsmith, Grand Prairie, that are not even anywhere near this meeting, Forest Creek, Silver Valley, Blueberry Mountain, Cotillion, Bonanza, into the same category that are, the guys on Cotillion are 40, 30 miles from Dawson Creek, but they're over 100 miles to Grand Prairie.
Well, let me compare it for you this way. We have approximately 125,000 breeding cows and heifers in the Peace. 4 years ago, we had only 100,000, so we're producing roughly 25% more calves now than we were 4 years ago. Have you seen a depressing impact on price?
No, but I'm very concerned about throwing 400% at that.
Well, okay, let me paint you a picture.
Plus all of Alberta.
Okay, we have 7%, as I understand, of the provincial cow herd in Alberta. With due respect, we are a very small fry. If we increase 300%, it means very little to Alberta. Now, if we're on a North American market, and we are, there's no question we are, cattle prices are not determined by any local market. They're determined by supply and demand across North America. All of Canada has only 10% of the cattle in the U.S. If we expand by 30% in Canada and the U.S. doesn't expand at all, we have only a ripple effect on the North American market. So the bottom line being, no, I'm not afraid that if we expand our cattle numbers quite dramatically here, that it will have a depressing effect on calf prices. No, I'm not afraid.
I am.
Yeah, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we're rapidly running out of time. I hate to shorten the debate. We theoretically must be out of here by 4:30, which is 5 minutes time. We'll probably sneak another half hour, but we've got several things more to do. So if you've got something quite outstanding to say about this present motion that's on the floor, feel free to say it, otherwise we're going to have to cut her short.
Yes, Chairman. Just as a point of information, I don't want to lead the debate in any way, but we've made a commitment already for this winter to conduct workshops on this topic and on the safety net program. I'm sure if I write John a letter and ask him to find someone who will attend those workshops, perhaps Ken Beswick, who's the author or co-author, or the president of the Western Wheat Growers, who is also a co-author, I believe. They were the ones that came up with this program first, already last March. Conduct workshops this winter and gather more information. Let the authors come here and sell the program to us and then present our arguments to them. Is that acceptable? And we'll table the motion pending that more information. Nice call for a table motion. John?
I've been sitting on the chair very diligently trying to not get into the argument, but now you've pushed me one step too far. I think it's incumbent on this group to vote on this issue because I have the suspicion that another area is going to be voting and the vote will go contrary to what I hear here. So I think you have to do that. And I've been around the transportation issue too long, as Ray and Mike can attest. There have been already too many studies about what can and what cannot be done, and quite frankly, you can find a study that's going to back up your argument, whatever you say in this study, in this transportation issue. All sides are going to be contradicting each other. Just as this program and the others that have come down the road, they can be challenged. Are you going to tell a man that is 65 years old, that has been raising grain for the last 15 years, that he should be into cows? That's crazy. It's not going to happen. Conversely, are you going to take good, productive black land and put it into pasture? It doesn't happen. It's silly. You don't do that. Conversely, you've got to use the rough ground to keep those cows. There's a lot of ground that should have never been broken. You're working on safety nets to counteract the problems that have stepped in the way of breaking that land because of the inequities in the system. I think you have to be careful when you deal with these things. One of the issues in this one that really comes home to me is the dilution factor that has been amplified, not addressed, but amplified. It's worse than it ever was in any of the proposals that have ever been brought about. It's made worse in this proposal. Your idea of workshops is great, but please don't avoid the opportunity to vote on what your gut instincts are. Because I can argue with you whatever you want to say. And in due respect to John, he's got a message to bring forward. But please vote.
Formally, partner, if you're proposing to amend or proposing tabling it formally.
Okay, I'll move to table. The only thing is that I don't know how to handle this constitutionally. Because I'm going to get into an argument with my good friend John Reeves there. This is certain as I stand it. Because I didn't ask for another study. You didn't hear me say that. But even the mover of the motion said to me just a few minutes ago that the most important thing is to get this discussed by all farmers. And for all farmers to understand what's involved here. My personal opinion is that we are not ready for the vote. I've just read this thing once, and I know quite a bit about it. I can see some good points in it. And I can see a whole lot of bad points in it. And every one of those that were brought up here today is, I agree with 100%. Those are bad points, okay? But I am not satisfied at this point in time that I know enough about it. John has admitted when he stood up here earlier that he's learned from this proposal. The information that he's gotten from it has been, as he's read it out of this book and has discussed it with his superiors. He's not one of the authors. He said that. And he said he's not prepared to answer all the questions on it. And so therefore, I think it's incumbent on us that before we make a decision, we get all the information that's available. And it can be discussed and voted on somewhere down the road. We aren't going to get a gap agreement until December, and we won't even get any activity there for 10 years after that agreement is made. I think we've got time. And we should look at this thing a little more diligently and in a little more detail. If some of the things happen that John told us are going to happen, then it's going to be good for us. I don't necessarily agree that they're going to happen, but let's find out more. I guess I can't emphasize that too much. I'm sorry, John, you and I are used to disagreeing, and we'll disagree some more. But that's my personal feeling, and I'm not calling for another study. I'm just calling for us here in this room to learn more about this thing.
I'll second your motion.
Yeah, okay, that's just very well. With a second, a motion to table the original motion. I'll call for a vote on the amendment, on the motion to table. So those in favour of tabling this motion until we study the proposal further, please signify. Thank you. Those against tabling this? It's on the table. So, in that case, we have to call debate on that one closed. That's a very heavy set of debate we went through there. Just to lighten things up for a moment, before we go on to the next motion. Also still got a couple here. We have with us Dalton Lawson, as you heard speak earlier on. Dalton, I want to give him the floor for a couple of minutes. He chairs a committee which advises the research station in Beaver Lodge as to its program, and he would like to talk about that just for a short time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would just like to bring to your attention, as farmers in the Peace River area, particularly this close to our station in Beaver Lodge, that John sits on the same committee that I do. Actually, I chair the thing. And we sort of put together some advisory thoughts to the research people there on the different types of programs that they could enter into. And we are sadly lacking on input as to what you people feel that they should be doing for us in agriculture, whether it be into livestock feeding or grains or whatever, your soil composition, whatever programs that you feel are necessary in your area. If you could send us a line either in care of the station at Beaver Lodge or myself, we would certainly appreciate it. Or contact John. We have about 8 members on the committee. There are none that I can think of quickly in the South Peace area besides Jerry Gumby, who was early this morning, and myself. The committee is made up of people in the bee industry, in the grains, in livestock, plus about 3 people involved with beekeeping. So there's a great complex of things that we can study, but we need some input from you people, and if you've got some real ideas on how we could further agriculture by some more specific research, I would sure welcome any input that you might get from that line.
Very good. We'll have another resolution earlier on.
Because the grain-producing sector of agricultural production has no united voice, and because the Alberta Cattle Commission shows no interest in being part of the organization, be it resolved that Unifarm begin discussion with the grain buying companies such as Alberta Wheat Pool, United Grain Growers, and any other company that can be convinced that it is in their interest to develop a fund to be used to buy advertising time on radio and TV to bring to the attention of consumers the extreme price difference between the price the consumer pays for foodstuffs and that received by the producer. Moved by Marshall.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Did I see that? Yes, Morris. Marshall, the floor is yours. Speak to the motion.
All my life I've been an advocate, and I've spoken many times on the Unifarm floor about this. But the agricultural industry in particular has to have a voice and to show the inequities between what the producer gets and what the consumer pays. There are consumers out there that think we get all the money, and somehow I think we have to try and develop this, and this is just my latest attempt at raising the money to
brought with me today a little article out of the Grain Matters from October. Fit in quite well with this. In 1 liter bottle of canola oil, priced at $1.99, there's 61 cents of canola, which is 3.26 times the value of the canola. Bottle of beer for $1.10, there's 1 cent of barley, 110 times the value. $1.39 loaf of white bread has 6 cents of wheat, or 23 times the value. A 1 pound package of sugar cookies, priced at $2.99, there's 2 cents of wheat, or 149.5 times. A 1 kilogram package of spaghetti, priced at $1.19, contains 24 cents of durum, which is 4.96 times. And the farmer's share in 40 ounce, $27.50 bottle of rye whiskey is 1 cent, or 2,750 times the value of the grain.
Thank you. Anyone speaking in the opposition to the motion? Anyone have anything to say about the motion? No debate? It's probably your money he's talking about. To set up this fund. This eventually is successful.
Question.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify. Those against? Unanimously. Carried. One more to go. We have to be out of here. We made a commitment of being out by 5 o'clock, so we're rushing right along.
Vendor mortgage plan. Whereas the vendor mortgage plan was established to allow retiring farmers to pass on their farms to the younger generation at a reasonable rate of interest, and to keep the farm monies invested in farmland, and as the program now is, only beginning farmers and farmers already in doubtful financial shape are eligible, be it resolved that the clause must meet eligibility criteria under beginning farm program, and applicants not meeting these criteria must show that other financing is not available, be deleted from the program. Moved by March Lamb.
I better have that just a second. Was there a seconder for that motion? ABC? Yes. Marge, you wish to speak to the motion?
I talked to an ADC loan officer in Blair, and he in turn phoned ADC in Camrose, and he informed me that this was a beginner's farm loan, and that it was a loan of last resort. Now, we got on the telephone here this afternoon, and we have found that has been contradicted. But that statement in there is on the brochure that ADC sends out or gives out to anybody who is applying for this loan. And it's very deceiving, and it discourages you before you even walk out the door. And I think that it should be removed from the brochure.
Very good. And the seconder?
I don't have much to say, but it was only to make sure the motion will be on the floor. And I know ADC should help more than the beginner farmer. If a boy buy half a section of land from his dad, and he want to buy some more 5, 6 years after, with that clause, he's not allowed to.
Any further debate on that? Yes, John.
I'm sorry, Mills, I'm not sure. Are your motions directed to various agencies once they're passed?
Perhaps eventually. These motions will all go on the floor of the main convention. But then what the floor there does and what the people there do is something else. They may be defeated. It's happened.
I don't work for ADC, but maybe if I could get this lady's name, I could get the regional manager for ADC in contact with her. And it sounds like there's a very specific concern with the brochure, which may be misleading. Maybe we can work that one out. There's a second proposal, which has to do with the beginning farmer versus what we call the direct farmer loan. And that one probably should stay as it is and go through the works. But if I can chat with this lady, I will see if we can attack that one on the brochure.
So what do you want to do with it, Marge? It's your motion.
Well, I'd like to see that statement removed from the brochure, for sure.
Just the statement removed from the motion, so that's now,
Very deceiving.
okay, so you would be happy if the motion said just that for the moment?
Exactly.
Taking that John will talk to you about that also. Okay. And the seconder will accept that?
Andrew.
Now, is there any further debate? We've restricted what the motion says. It's entirely to do with the brochure now, and the information is not correct. It's in the brochure. No further debate? Right. All those in favour of the motion as amended? Thank you. All those against? Carried unanimously. Very good. Turn the chair over to Mr. Nagel.
Thank you, Mills. We've got just a few minutes left, and I've got a few things I want to do yet. Edna, could you give us a registration report?
I'll give it from here.
Sure.
The registered fraternal delegates is 11. The visitors 5. And our total registration was 69.
59 delegates?
69.
69, thank you. Thank you very much. I think it'll be recorded. One of our larger meetings, and I really appreciate everybody that came here tonight, or today. It's gratifying for me and for Mills, the organizers of this thing, that there are enough people to fill the room, because it's a lot easier to address topics. I could go on and on and on. By the way, one thing that you've done is run this thing right to the limit so that I don't have to make my report. But I do want to say one thing, and that is that it seems like the theme of this meeting today, or the sense I get from it, is that we should be doing more things for ourselves. And I sure hope that's the direction that we work and go eventually. Because as was brought out today, when we were talking about the safety net program, a lot of people make a lot of decisions for us that really we don't like. And so we have to get strong enough and speak strongly enough to influence those decisions before they become fact. I guess that's what's behind, John, the argument that I used, that let's learn more about this thing. And once we decide we don't like it, then give it all we've got to fight against it. I go with you there. But let's learn a little more about it. Let's not say no to something before we understand it fully. I don't understand it yet. I'd like to thank some people. Helga Christensen, who did most of the legwork to organize this convention. Helga, we really appreciate it. Elsa Kramer, who did the typing and the copying, and whatever else he did. I've got my wife Eileen listed here as well. She's the pretty lady behind the camera over there. Recording everything that went on here today, and anyone that wants to know what went on here today, you're welcome to the tapes. Again, the Anderson family, and I say the Anderson family because that family has helped tremendously in the multitude of documents that we've had to prepare this past year and a half. And if you look at their computer, it just seems to fill one disk after the other. And we know we can go and punch into that computer and get every document out of there if we need to refer to it. And I really appreciate that. Sure. And then, last but most certainly not least, not quite last, but anyway, Mary Lou and Edna, who have served this organization. Mary Lou, you have served this organization for many more years than was named here today as far as Region Rec is concerned. And I want to say that over the years, since the 70s, the group that came from Tangent always included Mary Lou Blake. Thank you. Edna, you said you were going to continue support, and you also said that you would prepare the canvas, and that makes me feel just
Just like John, you didn't hear me say that.
to canvas, there will be a seminar held here in the near future, Canvassers Workshop, as soon as the fellow that John mentioned, Doug Folk, is able to come up here. He's advertised in the newspapers already for canvassers. We will need canvassers. We have to go canvassing. We'll do everything we can to help. But please, make yourself available if you think you can do the job. Mills Anderson, the auditor director, as I said earlier, that family has just done a tremendous amount of work. And I really appreciate it every time I can, when I write something, with all the spelling mistakes and all the grammar mistakes and all the punctuation marks in the wrong places that I have a tendency to do, I take it to him and he reads it in very close detail and it usually comes out right in the end. Thank you very much. Okay, with that, Bev?
I just wanted to make an observation that we had some young people with us today, and that's sure nice to see. And I know some people have mentioned to me that they have to get involved in this organization because of people like the work that Hartman's doing. I think we should thank him too for all his work and wish him good luck in the elections at Edmonton, if there is an election.
Thank you very much, Deb. I always say that I don't have the job. I told John that I hope that my decision and my announcement here, and it's the first he knew about it, hasn't had any effect on what his decision might be. I would just love to compete with John at the convention and make it an interesting campaign.
Mr. Chairman, in light of that, can I demand equal time? In all fairness, though, I enjoy working for the organization. I am happy where I am. I would be proud to serve with Hartman. And we didn't know that Hartman was planning to let his name stand. I have let it be known that my name is a possibility. I'm not seeking the position, but if it's there, it's up to other people to decide what is going to happen in the election. And I certainly wish Hartman the very best of luck in what he chooses to do.
Thank you, John. We thank you for adjournment at this time, and I wish you all a good trip home.
Couple more draws.
Oh, 2 more draws, I'm sorry. Oh, we've still got 10 minutes before the draw. Okay, while he's getting ready there, we were pushed for time today because there's another function in this room. I don't like that situation, and I think perhaps we should look for a place where we aren't really pushed for time. I don't like working under pressure. Have you got any preferences for any other place for the convention? We were supposed to have it in the Grande Prairie Inn. It wasn't available. Have you got any preferences where you would like to have this meeting? Elks Hall? Okay. Okay, it's recorded. Any others that we may?
Civic Center?
Sexsmith Civic Center. Thanks. Good idea.
There you go now, there you go.
It's the best hall in the country.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. That's good advice. We'll sure take it under advice. Okay, awesome.
Number 12 for the UFA.
Terrence Campbell?
Heavy duty tractor batteries from Case International.
Helga Christensen.
All right, we're ready to entertain a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Bob.
I've been watching those draws go on, and I'm not sure what your criteria is, but I would say that we should send these people a vote of thanks for their contributions to this meeting.
Good point. They do get a letter of thanks every year, but it's recorded as a vote of thanks from this convention. I think everyone agrees with that? Okay, we try to choose others every year. We don't pick on the same people. And I think it's really significant that those people do contribute. And it shows the support we've got out there in the business community. All right, motion to adjourn? No one wants to move? Second?
No.